Welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast. With us today is a fellow beer leaguer of mine that looks like a Swede, that qualifies him to be a guest on the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast, Alec Roberson, who currently lives in Wilmington, North Carolina. Isn't that right?
That's correct. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
This episode is brought to you by Scandlux, your home for Scandinavian luxury products for the U.S. market. You can find us at scandlux.com.
So tell us a little bit about who Alec Roberson is and your background. Why in the world did I ask you to come in, a former attorney? Why would I have you on this podcast?
All right. So I kind of have a whirlwind of a background, especially when it comes to hockey. I grew up in northeastern North Carolina, very rural area. Hockey is not a thing there. It's just not. I think the closest rink to me was 45 minutes away, and that didn't even happen until I was about 16 years old. And for one reason or another, I don't even know, I just got into hockey and I loved it. I worked and made like a roller hockey team in my high school, believe it or not. There was a league over in Raleigh, and we would play on weekends, travel about 2 hours over to Raleigh. And then when I went to UNC WIlmington for college, I started just saying, you know what, I'm just going to bite the bullet and I'm just going to learn how to ice skate. And there was a club team there. The coach was he was very open, very welcoming. And so I kind of tell people it was a little bit like the Rudy story. I just worked really hard and got on the team. I was never a top line player or anything, but I got in some games and it was a great experience, and just kept falling in love with it. And then from that point, I knew I was going to go to law school just based on my interest in school and what I wanted to do. And I always kind of thought I was going to have some sort of connection with hockey using my background, using my legal skills. And because I knew I wasn't going to go pro or anything like that, right? So at least be involved in some way. Went to Wake Forest University for law school and had a great experience there. And, there's a lot of avenues when it comes to working in sports, or, a lot of people want to do it. And there's 10,000 different ways you can get into it. Even just as an attorney, right? You can be an agent, work for a team, work for a company. And so my path kind of took me, I got out of school and I took a job down in Charlotte, and it was, a lot of that is just coming fresh out of school. You kind of take what you can get, and it was a good experience. I worked for a small firm doing a lot of trust and estate work and small business work, but being kind of an advocate for clients, being an advisor a lot of ways for clients. And somewhere on that path, I just got this idea for, well, maybe I'll throw together a blog that incorporates my love of hockey with my knowledge base, my skill set. And, for anybody that's been through law school, the main things they teach you how to do more than anything else is research and write. And so I just knew for me, like, getting into hockey and watching it and hearing things, there were so many times where it was like, at the NHL or at any level, at college and juniors, minors, whatever, it's like, this player did this or this team did this. And it's like, well, why did they have to do that? Like, or how does that work? And so I was like, well, I can just create something and go through and try to figure out answers to that question, because a lot of times this stuff's very complicated. Hockey's an international sport, and so you're not just talking about, the United States and or Canada. You're talking about the whole world, and all the leagues and all the different countries, kind of coming together. And so I started Beyond the Glass is a blog that goes into a mixture of legal business issues in hockey, but also a lot of player wellness stuff too. Because I wanted it to be a mixture of a few different things, but with the goal of answering questions, right? And helping people, even if it's just from, hey, I'm just wondering how this works, or if it's like, I actually really need to figure out this issue and what's going on. And so, it's a step beyond just being a news outlet. We'll take news stories and kind of dissect them a little more, or pick out specific parts and try to explain it and go through what's going on. And yeah, that's kind of how that came to be, just combination of what I was doing and what I love.
So now with pretty good regularity, you and I have been connected. I think you and I met playing Friday pickup every Friday.
That's right. Yep.
Black versus white.
Yep.
And had a great time. And then you were in law school at the time, and I was coaching kids and playing a little bit. And we've stayed friends and connected. And then you and I saw each other a few months ago down at the Southeast Regionals. I was down there with my son, and
Yep.
it's funny how this world is so small, and what connects people is this fun game with a black puck.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've also kind of stayed connected with you on LinkedIn and also on Facebook, and you've with a pretty good regularity sent out some really interesting articles that have content that I think is really, really valuable. And I love the part that you're a critical thinker and you like to dissect things and try to make things more palatable and understandable for the person, that you may take something that is complicated and make it less complicated. But there's also, so as an example, when you pull up your website, one of your articles is about, of course, it's got a Swedish player on there, but it talks about the NHL player transfer agreement highlights NHL in Sweden. I mean, that's taking a very specific subject and breaking it down into to different components and pieces. Then you can take a regular, it's more of a controversial subject and maybe given some it's more thought-provoking about the sexual abuse issues kind of plaguing Hockey Canada. And I think that the reason why I wanted to make sure that we highlight what you guys are doing, is a couple other people that are writing on this blog, is because, and I'm challenging you directly and indirectly about looking into more, not just the NHL, but also I think that the world of junior hockey, especially dealing with wellness, there's a lot of people that are coming over from all over the world to US and Canada, and it's a very unregulated world, and there's not always people with pure motives that are at the steering wheel. So there's a lot of risk, and it's a meat market. It's a huge risk of getting in the wrong crowd and also being taken advantage of. There's the world of family advisors. There's the role of the scouts. It's the role of the billet parent, the role of the general manager. And they're not always looking out for your best interest as a player or as a parent. And especially when you're dealing with the health and the wellness of a young, vulnerable person that loves the game, sometimes the love and the passion, there's greatness that can take when you have blinders on in your life and you're so focused, but then sometimes you don't see these danger areas that with some education and some knowledge, you can really try to avoid those.
Yeah. No, and that's a great point. I think that happens a lot at every level. There's a lot of players with good heads on their shoulder, but there's a lot that, from no fault of their own, they just want to play, right? That's their goal. They just want to get in and play. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, a famous story is what happened to Jack Johnson with his his parents had power of attorney, and there's a slew of financial things that went kind of sideways there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's kind of messy.
Well, so just to highlight one thing that is happening now, we talked about it in really in episode 3 with Ian Gately. His names came up several times, but you know, it made me go back and really learn, and now I've gotten more educated about, and that's the transfer process from USA hockey to Sweden has created where it used to be a lot of players went over to Sweden on a temporary visitor's visa, and then they figure it out after the fact. So they enter the country and they have a lot of players or a lot of advisors and scouts are saying, come on over, we'll figure it out. I've got a place for you. And then now all of a sudden, and that's still happening, but what happens now is that right now, when we're looking at the beginning of the season, the Swedish Hockey Federation now requires players to have a valid visa and be able to present that in order for them to actually get approved for their transfer, which is a new rule. And what's happening is they're paying money to advisors to find them a place, and they're taking their money and they're coming over here, and then, oops, you didn't get your transfer approved. And now you're having to go back to whatever junior team that you were on or whatever situation you're on, or you may have been blacklisted. So your travel status has been compromised, and that stuff will follow you for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid those people? And some, becoming an expert, sometimes you become an expert after the fact, and smart people learn from their mistakes, but really smart people learn from other people's mistakes. And what we're trying to do with the Swedish Junior Hockey podcast is highlight some of these things, and hopefully we can help people and educate people. And I think so the reason I wanted to get you on is really Beyond the Glass is a resource that people should pay attention to, and have as part of their favorites or whatever. When you come out with a new article, it should pop in, and also perhaps an avenue where if you have ideas or questions that you can contact and be like, hey, this may be a topic that you should dive into a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually glad you said that, because we thought about, doing that from time to time, and, just asking people, what's something that is really causing you to scratch your head, or, that may maybe be worth looking into to figure out. Because you're right. I mean, this stuff's, it can be very complicated. There's times where I'm looking into articles I'm writing, and it takes me a second. I'm like, this doesn't even make any sense to me. I'm like, where'd they get this from? Or, why'd they do this? And there's no reason. So it takes some digging, but yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. So if we wrap it up here a little bit, what's the best way? So how do you find Beyond the Glass, first of all?
Yeah, so it's beyondtheglasshockey.com is the website. And you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we have a little emblem that's like a blue and red kind of sideways flag looking thing. If you see that, that's us. And I wanted to make sure to give a shout out to the guy that helps me do it. And he's really done a lot. He does a lot of social media. He does articles. His friend Mikkel Bryan. He's a assistant coach up in the Boston area with a D3 program, and he does a lot of good stuff too. He helps out a lot, so I want to make sure to give him a shout out.
He's also been coming out every once in a while on the Friday lunch pickup.
Yeah, yeah.
He was a lot better than you and I, Alec.
Yeah, just a little bit.
No, that's awesome. And how do they find you on LinkedIn if they want to reach out directly to you?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Alec Roberson.
Alec with a C.
With a C, that's correct. Yeah, people mess that up a lot, and it doesn't really bother me. But if you're trying to actually find me, that's probably helpful. But yeah, and I work in, if you're unsure who it is, I work in with compliance with Wells Fargo now. I've actually kind of transitioned out of the private law firm, so that just might be a helpful indicator when you're looking at LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And for people that are listening, Alec is not only super smart, but and not only a good hockey player, but he's got a great heart and really wants to help people. And that's the reason why I wanted to have him on. So thanks for jumping on. And we're looking forward to the next part 2 of the Canadian abuse scandal coming out here soon.
Yeah, that should be coming soon. No, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the time, and I like what you're doing too. So it's been great.